Hey guys, it's Mr. Mini Painter here, and in this tutorial we will be painting Batman as he appears in Zero Year, from the Batman Gotham City Chronicles game by Monolith. This version of the Dark Knight captures Bruce Wayne early in his vigilante career with a costume that really blends sleek tactical elements with the raw energy of a hero just stepping out of Gotham's shadows. This miniature really emphasizes agility, determination, and his iconic silhouette. So, step by step, I'm going to show you from base coloring, shading, and highlighting, with a focus on creating smooth transitions from his dark suit combined with his formidable arm muscles and, of course, the weapon on his back. The goal is really to bring out the intensity and emerging heroism that really defined Batman during the Zero Year storyline. So, brush is ready. It's time to bring this early Dark Knight to life on your tabletop. So before we start painting, we prime the model in a light gray primer. Most of the armor is bright gray, so this is a perfect coat to start. Now, I could see on my miniature that there was a tiny bit of blue shining through. It's not really that concerning, but you could go over it again with some gray to cover it up. It's just a shine, but we want to clean it up, right? So I'm starting with the skin tones. Bugman's Glow I used as the primary color to paint his bare arms, the part of his face that is showing. Now, as usual, thin down your paint and make sure that you have some thin coats covering your miniature, because there are tiny details in there that you do not want to get clogged. He's got this grin on his face, so I'm trying to keep that white, as it will make my work further on in the process easier. And then it's time for Cadian flesh tone. Build up those muscle layers, leave some darker shady parts as they are, and focus on the highest areas, the areas that would reflect the most light, and color those with the Cadian flesh tone. Once that is done, I took some Kislev flesh, watered it down a little bit, and repeated the previous process, but now focusing only on those extreme highlights, so just those very outlines, some muscles, the elbow. And to make this process easier, I kind of block out the part that I want to be the brightest and then water down my paint and start pulling from the darkest areas towards the brightest areas, as to create a natural transition from dark to bright. You get a beautiful flow while doing that. Now with some Null Oil, I tried to add some definition to the mouth and separation of the teeth and the lips. So just to get some tiny black line in there. And it's best to do that before finishing the teeth. Then it's time for the largest area of this mini, and I used Dawnstone to paint all those grays as a base color. Now there is a lot of ground to cover, but you should end up with something looking like this. Nice and bright. Next, it's time for some blacks, and for that I used Black Legion. I tend to use contrast paints every now and then. You could go with Abaddon Black, of course, and then do some highlighting, but with these contrast paints you get a nice shade and highlight effect instantly, so why not try it out on this mini? So I'm focusing on all the black parts, which is quite some. You got the boots here. There are some straps around the boots. I left them as they were. And then we're done. Then with some null oil, I'm shading all the grays we painted before. Don't go too heavy, you just want to have some definition in those deeper layers, but you don't want any black puddles there. So when this paint starts to come together in a puddle, make sure that you remove it before it dries up. Otherwise you get some ugly spots and you don't want that. Then with some pure Dawnstone, I'm painting the straps around the boots. And now it's time for the first highlight stage, and I'm focusing on the larger areas of the muscles, for example the upper leg, and use some Administratum Gray to build up some highlights here and there. Leave those darker areas as they are, and water down your paint so you get a nice flow. After that's done, I'm repeating the process with Gray Sear, but decreasing the areas that I paint. I thin down my paint quite a lot so that I can create some smooth transitions, focusing only on the higher areas, so the top of the shoulders, the top of the knee, protection, some lines on his leg here and there. And again, and I can't emphasize this enough, thin down your paint because you don't want any pure solid layers there. You want to kind of glaze it. I'm doing the same effect with Ashen Gray on the blacks. So focusing on the front and top of the mask, the pointy ears, some muscles in his neck and back. We'll leave some black showing. Then with Dawnstone, I'm repeating the process, which is just slightly brighter, but creates a nice transition in colors there as well. And then it's time for the gloves, his typical purple pinkish gloves, Venetian purple as a base color. And we're going to be highlighting that with some Emperor's Children, focusing on the knuckles, the fingers. Just highlight everything, but also make sure to thin down your paint quite a bit. So make a solid line on the fingers and those extreme highlighted areas. Next, thin your paint down and focus on the rest of the glove in a thinner consistency. We're taking it a bit further by adding some palette witch flesh to the Emperor's Children and do some extreme highlighting here, and you get a beautiful result. And that's it for the gloves. We're continuing on the weapon on his back, and for the black parts I'm using Corvus Black, as it's a nice matte black, kind of grayish black color, and it doesn't really have that shine that Abaddon Black tends to have. Once that is done, we're continuing on the metal parts, and for that I'm using Ironbreaker. It's not too dark, but it still has that nice metal look. And I'm using that same color on those blades on the side of his legs. Next, I'm highlighting that with some Stormhost Silver, focusing only on those reflective areas, so the very top. pick out some tiny details here and there. That really makes that weapon work. Well, I'm guessing it does work, but you know what I mean. Then we're going to add some browns on the belt with Mournfang Brown. Once that is done, I'm using XV88 to paint the strap around his chest, holding the weapon. And with that done, it's time to highlight that strap with some Baneblade Brown. Try to carefully create some edge highlight there. It's always so rewarding when this part succeeds, because this is the thinnest part you can paint on this mini. Some edge highlights on those straps. Next, with some Mechanica Standard Grey, I'm painting the straps around his upper legs, just to have some different greys in there. I'm highlighting that with some Ashen Grey. Then with some non-oil, I'm shading all the metal parts. So that's the buckle, the weapon, the blades on his side. Next, I'm using some Thondia Brown on the handle of the axe that is dangling by his side here. And again, also to have some different kind of brown. It's nice to differentiate between the colors you have already used, so this really makes this a unique item. Now with some Deathclaw Brown and Mournfang Brown, I'm adding some details, some highlights to the belt and all the pouches. I then used Corvus Black again to paint the top part of the quiver, holding the arrows for this crossbow, and some dried bark for the arrows itself. Next up, some Mournfang Brown to highlight those arrows. Leave the darker areas as they are and focus only on the top that is really visible from this angle. With some Dawnstone, I'm painting in the shoelaces of the boots. It's a tiny but very fun detail. And then it's down to the base, Mechanica Standard Grey for the base color. Be careful around those boots. And once this is dry, we're going to shade that. And for shading it, we're using Null Oil. I'm going quite heavy on this because I want those cracks to be visible, because it's a very plain base. You want to add some details where you can. I'm also using some Agrax Earthshade to mix in the still wet Nuln Oil. Just kind of blend that in and then dry brushing that with some Grey Seer when this is dry. And there we have him, the finished miniature of Batman 0 Year. I really enjoyed painting this kind of brighter Batman than we normally know, the dark Crusader. This is a bit more fierce, a bit more fun to paint actually. And he still looks amazing. So I hope this video was of any help to you guys, and if it was, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and consider following me on my Patreon page as well as my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in one of my next videos. Bye bye!